Okay, Maestro, hit it.
I'm Wally Boat. I didn't know you knew Mickey Mouse.
Museum of the Weird.
The dawn of a new era.
Just a dream away.
I do want to actually take you through a little bit of, so we know at the time, obviously, Jim was negotiating with Michael Eisner for the sale of the Muppets. And then we know that there were a few different attractions that he was working on that didn't come to be. I want to take you through them and ask you if you could have one of these attractions, which one you would pick and why.
Oh, goody.
So the first was a spoof of Great Movie Ride, which I don't know if you're as familiar with.
Yes.
It's
when we
Hollywood
wrote
over.
through that, we were like, what the heck is this?
So there was going to be called the Great Muppet Movie Ride, where the Muppets would act out classic films. Jim Henson himself described the experience as a backstage ride explaining how movies were shot, but all the information is wrong. The second was Swedish Chef's Cooking School Restaurant. And the last was Great Gonzo's Pandemonium Pizza Parlor, which would be in the same style of a Hard Rock Cafe. It would have had Muppet Rat animatronics on tracks deliver pizza to you while Gonzo and Rizzo wreak havoc in the kitchen. It would have also kind of doubled as a Muppet Museum filled with Muppets merchandise. Which of those do you wish we could have actually gotten?
Well, actually, whenever I can have as many of the Muppets as possible, I like it. So the middle one, where it's kind of reduced, like the cooking school is great, but you wouldn't necessarily have all of them involved. Whereas the first one I think would be great because it leaves the creativity in Jim's side of the fence. And when working with Jim Henson, the guy's mind is so creative. And when he's with Frank Oz, they're just unstoppable. So to have the two of them come up with the wrong things to talk about, the various movies, things, and you could have, there's so many things. I mean, the last one is great because everyone loves Muppet merchandise. And then also Gonzo is hilarious. But I just think that first one would be really good because you could use all of the characters. And there's so many. That
and part of the concept art, you had Bride of Frankenstein, Miss Piggy, and like, who would not want that?
So cool. It would be so cool. Everything they're just, Animal and Janice and so many different characters that there's that one in Muppets Haunted Mansion, the last one, and he's the Shakespearean actor character.
Deadly.
I love him.
So 2014 Muppets.
I love him.
I went back and rewatched because obviously that not the best series, but the parts that you get with Deadly in that series, so solid.
He's obviously still holding a grudge over losing the lead in Walk the Line to Reese, who went on to win the Oscar.
Yeah, but I thought that grudge was replaced by the Natalie Portman grudge for stealing Black Swan.
That was just a decoy grudge. It's always been Witherspoon.
Well,
always.
Such a great character.
What a great new character. Not all new characters are great that Muppets introduced, but he is a winner.
You cannot go wrong with Deadly.
I love him.
There's also kind of a forgotten era in Muppets history, which is kind of the 1990s through 2004, where people forget Jim Henson Company. It's without Jim. And it's not under Disney. People often kind of think that Disney just automatically took it over because Muppet Vision opened around the same time. But really, you have Jim Henson Studios, where we had works like Muppet Christmas Carol, Muppet Treasure Island, Muppet Classic Theater, of course, the show Dinosaurs, many of which you were a part of. What was it like working with the Jim Henson Company without Jim, but before essentially Disney's big overarching influence?
Well, it's kind of in the middle because Brian was at the helm. And I think Brian was feeling more work for hire. So a lot of the shows he would do someone else's script. And the thing that was so lovely about Jim is he was the creative. He was always creating. And so I would always say, let's create. And so Dinosaurs was great because Brian and Disney and Michael Jacobs Productions came together to make this amazing show that was extremely creative. And that was really a win. The downside was that when Jim passed, before he passed, he chose Steve Whitmire to succeed him as Kermit. If anything happens to me, I want you to be Kermit, Steve. And I remember that we were under the floor. That's where puppeteers live, is we were under the floor of Dinosaurs when they sent down some Kermits that were designed for Steve to try on and to decide to see whether or not he wanted to make any changes. So how did that Kermit feel on his hand, and did it feel, good or whatever? And we were still reeling with sadness. Anytime you see Kermit, we were so sad that Jim was gone. And so we're under the floor doing Switched at Birth, which is two babies, Sinclairs. There's a green baby Aubrey, and there's a baby Sinclair, and then there's a green baby. So Brian was performing Green Baby with Steve Whitmire, and I was with Kevin. I did Baby Sinclair, so I was Baby's Arms for 4 years. And those, in the middle of a break, while we were under the floor, they were adjusting lights or whatever. These came down underneath the floor, and Steve tried them on. And I said, "How does that feel? How do you feel? What are you going through right now?" And Steve said, "Well, it's easier because Jim chose me, but it's weird." And he handed me one and he said, "Try it on." And I felt like I was wearing someone else's underwear. I did not want to be in that frog. It was not my character. It was Jim's character. And it felt so icky and alien. And I went, "Ugh!" And Steve smiled and he said, "Yeah, I'm fighting that and the fact that Jim chose me as the successor as Kermit." And that's tough, because Steve and Dave and Kevin and all of those people, who did these characters with Jim on Muppet Show, went through the creativity with him, went through the brainstorming with him, helped to the successes with him, and now he's gone. And now you're trying to move forward at a time when the captain of your ship is not there, and you can't help but feel sadness and pain. So that was really a weird experience, and one that I'll never forget. So it was in honor of Jim. And I remember we were programming the penguins. So after Muppet 3D Theater we filmed most of it, we were brought in to program the actual audio animatronic penguins. Myself, Bruce Lanoyle, Frank Oz, and I'm trying to remember the fourth puppeteer. I can't remember who it was. It was from the Henson crew. But we were programming the penguins, and Frank and I and Bruce sat in a huddle and talked about the pain of losing Jim. I said, "I barely knew him, but he was your friend for a long, long time." And Frank said, "Yeah, it's a knife, and it's still in my chest." And so, we were working hard to pick up the pieces and to pay as much homage to Jim as we could. But you just couldn't help but miss him. So Muppet 3D Theater was really special because Jim worked with us on that. He was with us. We were all performing with him on that.
And for the sake of everyone on in the audience, what puppets were you a part of on the 3D theater?
Well, I was ensemble, which was great. Most of the time on the West Coast, I played lead characters. And although I appreciate it, they're boring. I love being the sidekick. The sidekicks are fun. And Jim realized I loved doing that. So in Muppet Mini Classics, a lot of times he would give me a zebra, which is very funny because of being mixed, black and white. He would give me the zebra, which I loved. And then he would give me a horse because I'm really about horses and I loved animals and stuff. But in Muppet 3D Theater, I played some of the Small World characters, which were horrible puppets to operate. If you look at them closely, they're pretty ghastly in the show. But we also did the ensemble of the marching characters at the end where they're all marching. And if you look really closely, you can see our friend Len Levitt's head because he doesn't duck out of frame. So if you're watching that, look along the bottom of the frame and Len makes a personal appearance. And also we did various little background characters. Many people fought to be the right hand of Miss Piggy or a right hand of one of the characters so that they could work right alongside Jim Henson or Frank Oz. And a lot of times Frank Oz would say, if your assistant is a little too gregarious and moving the hand too much, as a puppeteer, you just grab it and you hold it. It's your quiet way of going, you're doing too much. And I really wasn't that interested in being that person. I had done it before, not that I'm above it, but I just really loved being a part of the whole process and the whole show. And I loved doing it. And it was a great opportunity to work with Jim. He's a big kid and a joyful person. And it was great to be with all of the Muppet people. All the Muppets were there. The only one who wasn't was Frank. Frank was in New York and he was delivering his Sam the Eagle lines. They would say, "What would Sam the Eagle say?" And he'd go, "Ah."
Glorious 3-hour finale.
And he would bark all of these different things. And they go, and Jim would go, "Okay, that's it." And he'd hang up the phone. So it was just great to see the process of how everything worked and how magical they were. And yeah, what a great opportunity to be with these fellows.
I can only imagine. Like, now if we fast forward a little bit, when Disney finally acquires the Muppets in the early 2000s, we get into a little bit of the controversy aspect. So these next questions will get a little bit controversial. If you're uncomfortable at any time, just let me know. We can cut them.
No, I always tell the truth.
And I appreciate that. It's Scout's honor. It's so Matt Vogel, who is really a part of that next generation of Muppets performers, took on the role of Kermit after the controversial removal of Steve Whitmire. He's gotten a little bit of criticism over the new sound of Kermit's voice online being a bit more noticeable of a transition than Jim to Steve.
As you all know, we had our big meeting with Disney Plus, and I'm happy to report that Muppets now received a green light.
Miss Piggy, Fozzie, Rolf, Swedish Chef. Those are just the few of the Muppets that are now being performed by different performers than the original puppeteers, despite the original puppeteers in some cases still being around. What do you think are some of the biggest challenges those new next generation puppeteers are facing when it comes to those beloved Muppet characters?
The first thing Disney did when they acquired the Muppets was look for sound-alikes. That's what these people are, sound-alikes. And they auditioned, they had a huge audition for all kinds of puppeteers, and you needed to sound alike. And I remember when I went and auditioned, I said, "Look, guys, my whole career has not been to sound like someone else's character. I don't duplicate other people's characters. I understand that in the case of Jim, he picked Steve. And I feel that if you're going to be someone who's going to do a character that you created from the felt up, that you should have a right to pick your successor." So Disney does it because if one of you gets cranky, they can just pick another sound alike and you're out. We've seen it. Okay. Disney didn't do it because some may get old and we need to supply it. They did it because if one of you gets to be not good, we'll put you in a burning building and goodbye. Okay. They wanted options. If you don't agree to the contract, maybe you're out. I don't know. This is my opinion. But Disney does this on several levels often. And so I didn't think it was a good idea. Matt Vogel is a brilliant puppeteer, but he's not a good Kermit.
And it's such a hard because of just the iconic
Right
and
from
Steve
my
being
mouth,
around.
He doesn't sound like Kermit. And now it's even harder for poor Matt because we have the Muppet Show on Disney Plus, so we can actually hear how wrong that voice is. It just puts Matt may enjoy doing Kermit. He may be honored to be Kermit, but it's not Kermit the Frog. And there are lots of people out there who can nail that voice. But personally, I know it was devastating for Steve to be eliminated from doing the voice, and he was handpicked by Jim. Disney says we don't care.
And from all that I've been able to research on it, they talk about that it was really stemmed, that Steve talks about like the writing on the wall stemming from one of the 2015 series of the Muppets They had an episode where Kermit is lying to Robin about breaking up from Miss Piggy, his nephew Robin, and it seems to be that it was about character integrity issues. What
was that one, Muppets Tonight, the one that I worked on? I did some work on it. I thought it was terrible. And the ones that I worked on, it looked like they finally were getting an idea of why the series wasn't working. And that was just as you said, Josiah, you've got Fozzie Bear stealing. Fozzie Bear would never steal. You've got Miss Piggy behaving in some cases like a tart or very mean. Miss Piggy wasn't mean. Miss Piggy was self-centered and narcissistic and oblivious. And we loved her. She loved Kermit. Unless she got a big job, then she'll put Kermit on the side and then,
Well, absolutely.
Goodbye. So, she wasn't evil and mean and nasty. And that show made characters nasty. It made characters mean. It made Kermit mean. They did things that were completely against character. And then they wondered why people weren't following the show. And then they got an idea in like the last 3 to 6 episodes. One of my favorite episodes I did get to work on was a story of two tales, or a tale of two tales.
With the
little tail,
the wardrobe malfunction. Yes.
Yeah, and she's teased, and you've got Joan Jett, and that was a beautiful story. I thought that was really well told. I thought they handled it very well, but by then it was too late. The plane was already heading for the mountain and they couldn't pull up in time. But those last few shows were the shows that they should have gone with the Muppets. And now as they move forward, I think they're realizing that they've got to keep the heart of the characters. And it's a really bad position to put people like Dave Gould in, because Dave wants to, Dave created Gonzo. And Dave has always been Gonzo. And he doesn't want someone else to do Gonzo. That's his character. So now he's faced with, how far do you push for your character integrity? And then if Disney says, well, if you don't like it, we'll get someone else to do the character. Now you've got a decision that just isn't fair. These are the people. Walt would disagree. Walt wouldn't like this because it's happening to Walt Disney. People are saying that Walt Disney wants to change things and have things like Star Wars at Disneyland. I don't believe that for a minute. I really don't. Star Wars would be great in California Adventure, but I don't believe
I feel the exact same way. Putting it in Disneyland seemed like a very weird call to me.
Walt would say, nah.
Yeah.
No.
This is the same man who said, we're not going to make the Haunted Mansion gross because it will take care of the outside. The ghost will take care of the inside. It just doesn't fit the theme. He's
so you've got people like Dave Gould who wants to stay true to his character, and Disney's saying, they're giving him ultimatums. I'm sure he's had them. I don't know first. So for all of you out there, I don't know this firsthand, but I do know that he will work to keep his character, to keep the integrity of his character. So his character is true to the original character. But Steve Whitmire this is not what my character would do. I need to fight for my character. And they get somebody else. And Walt would never, that's what they're trying to say about Walt Disney now is let's get somebody else. What? Somebody other than Walt Disney to do Disney?
Right.
What are you, nuts?
Right.
So for me, it's not the Sound-Alikes' fault. They're looking to do something that they love, and they're trying to do the best that they can with what they have. But Matt, bless his heart, he doesn't have the vocal range for Kermit the Frog. He has the vocal range for other characters, and he nails them really well. But you need to have a particular vocal range for Kermit the Frog. And if you don't believe this is true, watch The Muppet Show. And then you'll know. There's lots of people who can nail it just like Jim and can almost sound exactly like Jim. And those are the people that really need to be doing Kermit, because it's so distracting when it's wrong, when it's just not correct. So Muppets Haunted Mansion, the whole time I'm going, oh, that Kermit.
Yeah, which thankfully he was only in the one portion.
But it's
and you had a lot more Gonzo. Yeah.
It's just, and it's not his fault. They shouldn't have cast him in that role. We can't do every role. Do not cast me as Kermit the Frog. I'm terrible as well. I suck at it. I'm not going to be any good. I'm not going to be good as Miss Piggy. I'm not going to be good at any of those characters. And for me, they're not my characters. I have a ton of characters that are mine. And I am so proud of those who are those characters, and homage to those who can duplicate the characters because the people are no longer living. But I think it's a shame you don't have the original people. And when Frank Oz said they told him he couldn't do Miss Piggy, I'm sorry, guys, that's a sin right there. That's a sin. Yeah. Why would you tell?
I mean, Frank Oz is such a legend, even on the aspect of if you have a puppeteer being harder to work with. Frank Oz in interviews has said that he said, I was a punk kid and Jim Henson gave me multiple chances because he saw the talent in me. And I just think that
I love Frank. I love Frank. Okay. So Frank comes to the set of Dinosaurs looking for someone without an ego and picks me. Okay. Because he says anyone who can be with Kevin Clash can't have much of an ego, which is absolutely incorrect. I do have an ego, by the way, but he put me in Indian in the Cupboard.
Oh, he directed one of my favorite childhood movies.
Oh my gosh. And to work with him side by side, he's just a wonderful, I don't know why you don't want Frank Oz in your, why don't you want Frank? It boggles the mind. It's like, Walt, we no longer want you in Disneyland or Walt Disney World. Okay. No more Walt Disney, no more. That's what I feel when they say they don't want Frank. It freaks me out. Or they don't want Steve. It freaks me out that you don't want the original people. I don't understand that. And I won't understand that, and I won't get that. But that's one of the things I think that makes Muppet Haunted Mansion not as great as it could have been, because you're missing, you cannot get past that Kermit voice not being right. And then some of the characterizations of some of the other things that happen in there are a little off as well. And I don't think it's fair to say, well, you saw it then and people now don't know what that is. Don't use the excuse of the people that are living now don't get.
Well, especially now,
because like, with Disney Plus, watch the show and you will get it, and then you'll understand what we're talking about. So So very frankly, I love Bill Barretta's characters, and I love Dave and all of them. And then my favorite part of the Haunted Mansion was my friend Bruce Lanoyle played one of the absent-minded ghosts that kept saying, or the mummy. What was the character that kept going ta-da or whatever?
Yes.
That's my friend Bruce. Such a clever, wonderful puppeteer. He's so brilliant. And I just laughed. I kept waiting for those two characters to come back, because they really were charismatic and dynamic, and they really were a great part of the whole thing.
Oh,
and
yeah.
The other fellow who
Uncle Deadly, such a great character. Anytime Deadly steps out, and he was great in the 2015 series on the episode you talked about, the Tale of Two Piggies, when Piggy's tail pops out and it's his design. He's like, oh, she's wearing Vera Wang. Like,
he's
absolutely hilarious.
That character's brilliant. He can do no wrong in my eyes. I love him. I think he's one of the greatest newer characters to come out, and he's not that new, but he's still newer, and he's just lovely. He's so lovely. And if you bring out characters like that, and Pepe, who is a great character, a newer character, compared to when Jim was alive versus when Jim wasn't, but brilliant characters. So create, do rather than duplicating those characters who are already been created, unless it's time for them to retire or step down, then let them pick who's going to succeed them.
Absolutely.
Create your own, because these people Matt Vogel is a brilliant puppeteer. He doesn't really need to be duplicating other characters. He's got plenty of his own. So it's like, it's not really fair to him, because he's getting all these people to go, man, your Kermit's awful. And poor Matt, let Matt do characters that Matt creates and does, and magically is a part of the Muppet troupe, because Disney can have a big Muppet troupe. They all don't have to be on camera, but you can rotate them through, and have these great these great characters, because some of them, the voices are so unique
Mhm.
that it's very difficult to find people to duplicate those voices because of the way that this person's voice
Yeah.
is.
And that's how I really feel like his version of Kermit. It sounds more like the Muppets what's it, the Constantine character from the Muppets Most Wanted film. It sounds more as like Constantine, which was his character. And that's what I
Exactly.
feel like I hear.